let's face it, the world's pretty fucked up right now. War is happening, climate change is accelerating, and the orange man is president again. So what can we do as tiny blobs in this vast universe? If this was a fictional universe, I would call Luffy and be like, hey, I'll give you a gourmet buffet if you come free us. Free Palestine, free Gaza. And you know what? He would do it. Luffy from One Piece is literally the symbol of freedom and hope. And I've been watching this show since I was a young little girl. And it's my favorite show of all time. So instead of losing all hope because of everything going wrong in the world, I'll become Luffy. I'll put on my hat. And no, I don't have some stretchy powers like him. But I do have a voice, and that matters. My voice can unite people, bring community together, and we need that more than ever. So join the movement, the Thoughtful Advocate podcast, where we learn from influential, thoughtful advocates around the world and turn our pain into power.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Thoughtful Advocate. I'm your host, Elizabeth Teo. Now, we all want change in the world, but most of us don't know where to start. So I'm sitting down with the Thoughtful Advocate, the people turning hope into action. And today's Thoughtful Advocate is Katy, a writer at FEMINIST and the founder of Bad Asian. And I think that's so badass. Welcome to the show. So excited to have you here. I think I was scrolling through our DMs and our earliest DM was like in 2020, which is crazy. So it's been like 5 years now. And this is the first time we're sitting down speaking face to face as much as we can. Obviously, we're on opposite coasts, but I'm so excited to have you here, Katy. Thank you so much for being here. And hopefully everyone's safe. I know in Vancouver, there's the tsunami warnings, and I heard about it last night. So I was like, hey, I hope my girl Katy's okay. She didn't get washed away by the tsunami.
I'm still here, thankfully.
Safety first. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we'll start off with the show and tell. So basically, this is part of the segment where the guest brings a meaningful object and you just introduce yourself by showing it and explaining in one or more sentences why it matters to you.
I just made this necklace a few days ago. I don't know if you can see it very clearly on the camera. Yeah, it's a Bad Asian necklace.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's made out of shrink plastic. So basically, you can just DIY it, draw whatever design you want, and then you put it under heat and it shrinks. And then you can turn it into jewelry and all kinds of cool stuff. But yeah, this is really meaningful to me because it just really represents where I am right now with my activism journey and the kind of person I am and my identity as someone who is subverting the norm or trying to. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you.
That's amazing. I love that necklace. I was going to ask you, did you thrift that or something? Because it looks so cool, but you made it. That's even better. Oh my God. And I love the little gold details in between too. The red and gold is just so Asian-esque.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to bring in that little Asian flavor. I've even got a little mahjong tile here.
So, when looking at how far you've come, from shrinking yourself in Conservative City to writing for platforms that reach literally millions of people, what one moment that feel completely surreal to you? I know you've had some opportunities and been to many events and met many amazing people, but is there just one moment that just stands out to you?
Yeah, I feel like you said, there's been so many moments. I feel like ever since I got my role at Feminist, that was just so groundbreaking to me because, like you mentioned, I grew up in a city that was very conservative. The values were very different from my own. I was definitely a minority there and didn't feel like I fit in. And I feel like I always had to turn to writing to feel safe and to feel comfortable. And that was my channel for everything I was feeling when I was feeling isolated from the rest of the world. And I wasn't really being seen by the people around me. And yeah, I think just being able to write and reach so many people is surreal in and of itself. But if I want to think of a specific moment that really blew my mind. It was just a few months ago, I got to go to New York with the feminist team, and we were invited to do a salon at Gloria Steinem's apartment in New York City. Gloria Steinem is one of the very first feminist journalists in the United States, and she really blew up the feminist movement and made it what it is today. And she's also done a great job of uplifting women of color around her who also helped to build the movement. And she's just such an amazing feminist icon. And so I found out about the event just a few days before because it was a very last minute type of thing to organize. And I literally had to book my flight last minute, got a really bad layover, had to sleep
those
on
are
an
the
airport
worst.
bench for
No.
4 hours. And then once I landed, I just basically went straight to Gloria's apartment. And so, yeah, it was crazy getting there, but it was so worth it because it was just such a surreal moment to get to meet one of my icons and to talk to her about my writing and give her a hug. And she turned 91 recently, so we got to celebrate her 91st birthday with her.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it was just so surreal.
91 is huge. But that's also really cool. To meet one of the first well-known feminist journalists, that's huge, especially being in the field that you're in. I think that's definitely a good surreal moment. And I think I saw some of the photos on your Instagram. You posted some of the photos meeting her. That is really cool. And to get together with the people who worked at Feminist as well and meet her together, that's really awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. I remember even just looking around the room and everybody else in the room was so cool too. There was this amazing rape rights advocate named Deja Fox who recently ran for office in Arizona. There was Tarana Burke, the founder of the Me Too movement. All these people I'd looked up to for so long. And I was like,
they're all in one. Do you want to share a bit more of your background? I know you come up from a conservative city, but I know you're in Vancouver right now. Were you born in Vancouver?
So I was born in Calgary, Alberta.
Okay.
When I say I was born in a very conservative
that makes sense. I was going to say, Vancouver's not. No, that makes so much more sense. Okay, yes.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Calgary. My parents are refugees. So it's a little bit of a complicated history because we don't even know exactly where we came from because my family's been displaced so many times. And then they have eventually ended up coming to Canada. So both my parents were in Canada since they were teenagers. And then, had me in Calgary. And so, I think just that refugee lineage is something that has always meant a lot to me and really connected me to activism. Just when I think about people around the world who are going through really difficult things, I just think back to my family history and realize my family was in a similar situation back in the day. And those people, they could have been me. And a lot of things in life are just really luck of the draw. And so I think that really made me passionate about human rights and wanting to make sure that everybody in the world gets the best chance to live in a safe and peaceful world.
100%. Ever since hearing about the ICE raids, those have been heartbreaking because that could have been my grandma. I was living in the States for 18 years and I think my grandma's visa expired one time. So luckily nothing crazy happened, but I can just put myself in their shoe, how terrified they would be. Because every time we go to the airport, my grandma's always terrified. Yeah, to see other people go through this is just, it's just unfair and heartbreaking. But I think I read that you're also Cantonese as well. So are both your parents from Hong Kong then, or do they?
So both my parents are Cantonese. I don't think we're actually from Hong Kong.
Okay.
So both of them were actually born in these small Vietnamese villages, even though they were Cantonese or Chinese.
Yeah.
But I think my grandparents were displaced to Vietnam prior to my parents being born. And so they had already grown up in these places where they didn't necessarily belong. And that was why they ended up becoming refugees when there was conflict between China and Vietnam. And my parents have some crazy stories of being captured by soldiers and stuff because they thought they were Chinese spies. And then they ended up being moved around to different refugee camps and then coming to Canada. So I think, throughout our entire family history, it's been living in these places where we didn't necessarily belong. And so, I think I've definitely carried a lot of that with me.
I'm sure there's a lot of generational trauma as well from all of that. But I find it interesting because I've met a lot of Vietnamese people who speak Cantonese. So there is a lot of overlap, which I think is really cool and bring cultures like closer together. So that's really neat that, yeah, I'm sorry your parents went through that. That must have been like so difficult. I'm glad they're hopefully safe now. And obviously their children are. So I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Now, what does your day-to-day look like now as a writer, activist, and storyteller across platforms like Feminist and the Environmental Media Association? And what part of your current work feels more aligned to you currently?
Yeah, so I think honestly, when I talk about my day to day, it's not that exciting, but it's exciting internally. But if you were to look at me, you'd be like, she's just sitting at her desk typing. When we share on social media, there's obviously these big moments of going to these activism events and getting to meet these really prominent activists like Gloria Steinem, or with the EMA, I've gotten the chance to meet different Hollywood celebrities and interview them on the carpet and really cool things like that. But I think what people don't really see is that most of the time it's literally just sitting at my desk, doing research, coming up with ideas for articles, and then writing articles, send them over to my team, doing revisions, all of that. So it's really just like another job. But I think the difference is that on the inside, like, I'm so excited about it. All of this work is stuff that I would do for free. So to get to do it as a job is just the most exciting thing. And I think the thing that excites me the most about it, or feels the most aligned with me, is whenever I get to write about something that is a pop culture moment. So, like, for example, in the past year, we had a few posts go viral, like one that I wrote about Wicked, the movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And
I love
some of
that
the biggest feminist themes from that movie, because it's also about female friendship and women supporting each other and how complicated that can be. And so there's a lot of feminist themes there, and also racism and scapegoating. And I think it's very relevant to a lot of the things that are happening in the world right now. And so I really love being able to tie those kind of pop culture moments to what's real and what's happening in society, and kind of using those big moments as a way to educate people and to get them interested in activism when maybe they haven't been before. And I think it's a really fun way to do that. And it's a really engaging way to do that. And it's also, it's really fun to write those projects.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, thank you for sharing. Like, obviously you do real work. Like, you have, as a writer, you have to sit down, do your research, and actually type and write. That most people don't realize, because they're all social media influencer, I would say, that, yeah, social media is just like a highlight reel, right? It just shows the best moment or highlights of your life. And that's not day to day. You're not going to all these places every single day or every single second. So yes, real work is involved and you're doing the good work. So that's amazing. And I really loved Wicked. I never saw the play or read the book, but when I saw the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, I connect so much to Alphaba, because she's like the underdog, and so much hate and racism towards her, which I felt growing up too, especially as a Chinese American. But like, she, no matter what, she always stands up for what's right. And even if that makes her the bad guy. And that's why I love what you're doing with Bad Asian, because growing up, you're always told to be the good Asian girl, the good girl, that not all of us are like that. And we want to stand up for ourselves. We want to speak up, and we want to use our voice. And so I really love like what you're doing. But I'd love to dive in a bit more. I know we talked about your parents and how they grew up, but how do you think growing up in like a Cantonese household, like how did their experience affect your identity and shape you? Do you feel like you felt intergenerational trauma from them, or is it a completely different experience?
I guess when I think about growing up with my parents, they taught me a lot of really important lessons. I think with being refugees, they always taught me to be very grateful for everything that I had. They've taught me a lot of really great things about what it means to be a good person, to be kind to others. But I think on the flip side of that, there's also, with that definition of good, is also being polite, being ladylike, crossing your legs when you sit, not being too loud, things like that, which I think are just a part of a lot of cultures, not just my culture. And yeah, a lot of these ideas of what it means to be good specifically as a girl or as a woman. And I think it impacts a lot of Asian women to the point where we don't feel like we can speak out, or we don't feel like our feelings are valid. And I think it can lead to us taking this racism and sexism in society and kind of just accepting it or rolling with it. And yeah, that's definitely something I've had to unlearn, is just being able to speak up and not necessarily always be that good girl, but also taking a lot of the positive lessons of still treating others with kindness and being respectful towards others, but without suppressing your own feelings. And yeah, it's a balance of the two. And I think I took a lot of really meaningful lessons from my parents on that.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. It's definitely a balance. And I'm glad you brought that up because, yes, it's hard to be, you're forced upon of this idea of perfectionism. Like you always have to put on a face, especially with a lot of Asian households. And it's always to be demure and not say anything out of hand. But it's hard because you feel like you've been suppressed for so many years of your life. And sometimes you just gotta break out and use your voice and actually say what the heck you feel, like be your authentic self. And that can be really hard in Asian households. But of course, I think respect is a big thing in Asian culture, respect for your elders, respect for other people, which I think is important no matter where you come from. So thank you for sharing that. So I want to know, was your family supportive of your dreams to become a writer, an activist, or did you face a lot of resistance when this came through, or even misunderstanding? And how did those early expectations influence your choices?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think my mom actually, maybe inadvertently, is the one who really inspired me to become a writer, because she always took me to the library when I was a kid. And I think she taught me really amazing values just by like really teaching me to prioritize my education. And yeah, she really just turned me into a nerd because she was always taking me to the library. And that was like where I would hang out all the time when I was a kid. But I think I fell in love with books too hard and really wanted to become an author one day. And I would spend my childhood just spending my summers writing and pretending I was writing a book and things like that. So I think it's always been in me, and my parents always loved that about me because they were like, oh, she's just this good little girl. She loves to write and read. And but what's really funny is when I was little, I was so addicted to reading that my parents would punish me by taking my books away from me and hiding them because I was reading like too much. That's to the point where I would ignore them. So yeah, I think it's always been in me. And I think they've always been quite supportive, but with a little hint of concern. So yeah, when I told them I had started writing, they're just like, oh, that's really cool. Send me your writing. I want to see it. But they're also like, is this a real job? Are you actually getting paid for this? Are you going to be okay? I think it's all out of love. And yeah, I think there's this kind of stereotype that Asian parents don't support creative careers. And I think it's true to an extent, to the point where I think it really just comes from a place of them wanting to make sure you're okay. And a lot of careers are honestly like less stable. So I think it just comes from that place. But for a lot of Asian parents, like I think once they realize you're going to be okay, like everything's fine, that's really what matters to them the most.
Yeah, I agree. It comes from, I think, a place of survival, especially the way they grew up. Of course, they're going to think, are you going to be able to make any money, or are you just going to be living on the streets and trying to write with hope? Understandably. But I think once you show them that you can actually make a stable living from your career, I think that's when they finally start to see that, hey, she can actually fend for herself. So I think that's amazing. And that's so funny and so sad about them taking away your books. I don't know. It just reminds me of Matilda whenever she goes to the library and Mr. Woodward comes in and says, "You stop reading your stupid books" or something. I can't remember the quote, but I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like the Asian Matilda.
Yeah, I love Matilda. Oh
it's such a good movie. But I love that. I can definitely imagine you like spending so much time in the library. But libraries are honestly amazing. It's like a free space where you can just, let your imagination run wild. That's awesome. So we did talk a bit about what being a good Asian means to you. Obviously, it's like listening to your parents, being respectful, not saying anything crazy. But when did you begin to question or resist that label? Was there a specific moment?
Yeah, I think that it's honestly a question I've been playing my entire life, but without kind of realizing it. So when I think about this idea of being a good Asian, there's kind of three aspects to it. The first one is like expectations from your parents of what kind of person you can be. It's out of love, but it can also be a little bit limiting sometimes. The second is also being an Asian person growing up in a white kind of colonial society. That also comes with limitations on what's expected of us and what kind of role we can play as minorities. And then the third is also the patriarchy dimension. So there's also very gendered expectations that are specifically placed on Asian women and Asian men that limit us. So I think a lot of us are grappling with those three dimensions to identity. Just growing up in a place that was extra conservative, very predominantly white, really amplified that feeling for me growing up. And I guess the moment that really made it all click for me was going to my sister's high school graduation earlier this year. So I got the chance to go back to Calgary, revisit my high school, revisit all these old places, but from the place of someone who now is a feminist writer and is really deeply involved in this work. And it had me reflecting on my past self. And I was like, wow, I've grown so much since the high school version of me. And it made me realize that version of me had always been trying to be this Asian. Like when I was in high school, I was grappling with a lot of internalized misogyny and internalized racism. And since then, I've grown a lot and been able to unlearn a lot of that. But yeah, I think it was really that moment of looking at the younger version of myself and being like, wow, you were trying so hard to be good. And being able to let go of all of those expectations has been so liberating. And yeah, it just made me realize something that's been with me my entire life. And it made me really want to start Bad Asian because, yeah, I realized it's something that so many other people experience.
Yeah, 100%. When you're telling your story of going back and seeing how you tried so hard to fit into this little box that they place, like a lot of, whether it's your family or society expectations, for you to be this perfect little Asian girl, I definitely felt that because you almost want to hold like yourself when you're a little, like little Katie or little Elizabeth, and just tell them, like, it's okay. Like, you didn't have to try so hard to be this perfect little girl. And whether it was for love or acceptance or anything like that. And I'm so proud of us for breaking through that mold because
Yes.
it's huge. And it's still something I also work on every day, whether that's speaking up for myself, because it doesn't matter. If like someone like bumps into me on accident, I always feel like it's my fault, even though they're the ones that bumped into me. But because of like how I grew up, and I still try to go against that every single day, and it could be a struggle. But I think it's important to visit your past and see how much you've grown from it. And I'd like to know, growing up, like you grew up in a Cantonese household, was there ever a moment where you tried to distance yourself from your culture, whether that be from the food, maybe the way your family dresses, or anything like that? Especially in school, I know that's pretty common. And when did you reclaim those parts of yourself?
Yeah, I think honestly, I was doing that for my entire, I want to say, middle school and high school. I think towards the end of elementary school, I started to realize that maybe not even consciously, but subconsciously, that I didn't belong as much as the other kids at school. And part of it was because of being Asian. And I think especially like reaching the age of puberty, like I was already starting to be sexualized in a very like racialized way. So like whenever the boys in the grade would talk about the girls, they would put Asian girls in their own category and be like, oh, like this girl is the prettiest Asian girl. And it would be very like, I would feel very up by that. And it just made me realize, yeah, I'm being seen in a totally different way than my peers. So yeah, I think once I became conscious of that, I really started to feel the sense of internalized racism without even realizing it. And I felt like I had to fit in with the white kids at school to feel like I belonged. And so I would stop speaking my native language at home. I had to go to Chinese school, and I just absolutely hated it. And so I think internally, I just really started projecting those parts of myself. And I was like, I can't show any of this when I'm at school. And I had this group of friends who were like mostly white girls, and they were really lovely people, but never really felt like I belonged with them. So I just went along with it. I was like, I'm going to try to do my makeup in the same way as them. It did not work for me. I'm going to go to Starbucks with them and get into all the same stuff that they're into, even though it's not genuinely what I'm into. I think I was just trying really hard to fit in when I was a teenager. And it's something that I didn't really start to unlearn until adulthood.
Yeah, and that's really hard because, of course, as a teenager, you're so susceptible to being part of society. And of course, you're going to hide parts of yourself that you don't want other people to see. And I also grew up in a very white neighborhood, as well as going to school. Like, I think there was only a handful of Asian people. So yeah, seeing that, I also stopped speaking Cantonese at home, and to the point where I almost forgot how to speak Cantonese. And so I really feel that with you. And what do you think was the point or power that you gave yourself permission to take up faith and use your voice, like as truly yourself?
That is a great question. I don't know if there was one specific point, but I think it really started with when I learned about what feminism was. So I didn't really know about feminism until I was like in my late teens. And when I started reading about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so validated by everything here. And it took me a while to really identify as a feminist, because at first I actually was like, oh, why does it have the term femme in it? Does that mean that it's like female supremacy or we don't like men kind of thing? And so I didn't want to identify as a feminist for a while. But then as I learned more about it and I started to think about the word, it made me realize there's so many words that we use in the English language that prioritize men, like humankind, mankind, like history. There's so many words that are already gendered. And I was like, why can't women have their own word too? And why can't we have this word that really at the heart of it just means we want everyone to be treated equally, regardless of their gender? And so I think once I started learning more about feminism and allowed myself to identify as one, that was really the start of me unlearning this idea of being a good girl and being able to identify as my own kind of person and kind of shape that in my own way and shed these expectations that the patriarchy places on us. So yeah, I think that was really the start for me.
I love that. I think the word, feminism is so powerful because it doesn't have the word man in it. So true, because so many things, so many words, even in like taking chemistry, all the chemists that you learn about are white males. And it's, damn, where are the ladies at? Come on, I know they did something, but clearly it was not documented. What do you think was your first, I don't know, like feminist, like movie or moment in like pop culture that you remember growing up? Because I feel like growing up, there's a lot of superhero movies about men, and it's all like this again. No wonder they feel badass all the time, ready to take on the world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so many that maybe don't explicitly identify as feminist, but so many fictional female characters are so amazing. If you think about Hermione Granger or Katniss Everdeen, like those types of characters I always resonated with so much. I think the very first one I can remember is Jo March from Little Women. Have you read Little Women or seen the film?
I saw the movie,
Yeah.
yes. She's very outspoken, and I love that.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, Little Women is one of my favorite books ever. And I love how it showed, like, it was like a fully woman-centered story told from a woman's perspective. And it showed like these four sisters who are all very different from each other, all have a very different vision of what it means to be a woman. And I love the book because it doesn't say that one specific way of being a woman is better than the other. And like one of the sisters, Meg, like she's very traditional, like she wants to be a trad wife. That's her dream. Like she just wants to have a husband and kids and cook and be a housewife and have pretty dresses. And her dreams are just as valid as Jo's, who wants to be a writer, who wants to have a career, who's very ambitious, who is like this tomboy character. And so I really love that book because it teaches us that being a woman can be so expansive. And I personally related to Jo a lot because, yeah, she was like the odd one and she always felt different, but she still always went for her dreams and was always herself. And yeah, I think she was probably one of the first that I remember.
No, that's awesome. I think I have to read the book now because I've heard so many good things. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I loved how she really went against the grain. Like she didn't want to get married either. She was really full on with her career as a writer, which I'm sure you can relate as a writer. And that's awesome. And I love the dystopian era of like all those like all those books like Divergent and all those like movies are so good. And now the movies are coming back, right? Like with Katniss Everdeen.
Yeah, and all the Hunger Games movies.
They even made like The Uglies like a movie too. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like from my middle school era. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 26.
Okay,
How old are you?
I'm 29, so we're like 3 years. What's one rule that you can think of that you had to really break to become who you are today?
I think, like we've been talking about, it's really those rules of what's expected specifically of an Asian woman growing up in a white patriarchy. I think it's like a very specific kind of confining experience to have. And I really had to unlearn this idea that Asian women have to be like soft and submissive. And a lot of that is so reinforced by the media that we see. I think growing up, all of the representation I saw of Asian women was very sexualized and fetishized. I think one of the earliest examples I saw was like The Forbidden Kingdom with Jackie Chan and Jet Li. Awesome movie, loved it. But the main girl was really just there to be the white male protagonist love interest. And I think that is how we have been portrayed quite often in media. And it hasn't been until recently with Crazy Rich Asians and like a lot more Asian representation, like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think that definition is really expanding. But yeah, for me growing up, that was all I thought that I could be. And so I think I've had to learn this balance because I think there are parts of me that are really soft and that's like really beautiful, but it doesn't mean that I can't be strong or outspoken as well when I need to be. So yeah, I think it's a really big thing that a lot of Asian women have to unlearn, but it's really uncomfortable because when we do speak out and we subvert those expectations, a lot of people can be like, oh, that's not what I expected from you. That makes me uncomfortable. And I don't know if I like that. And so you can see I've been in situations where people felt like comfortable to say racist and sexist things around me. And I think maybe they expected me to be okay with it, but I'm not. So I'll speak out. And I think it makes other people uncomfortable too. So you have to be prepared for that reaction and be okay with it. And I think ultimately changing people's expectations of what an Asian woman can be is really important because it opens it up for other Asian women to be themselves too.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. That I've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once like a million times. It's such a good movie. And I feel like a lot of people can relate. Depression runs through my family deeply. So I definitely felt the main character and her mom. So I felt like that was such a powerful movie. But I was going to say, I love how you put the juxtaposition between being soft and more aggressive, more fiery. And we're always taught to be soft as an Asian woman, like as Asian women. And that's so prevalent in early like pop culture, like movies, like Asian women always stereotyped to be the soft, sexy girl who's always like quiet. But no, some of us are outspoken and fiery. And I love that. And even in my own relationships, I feel like I wear the pants in my relationships. My husband might disagree that I feel like a lot of women actually in my family wear the pants in the relationship. And I love that because it shows that we're not always the sub. So sometimes we can be the dom. So, and that's okay.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like people who think Asian women are soft should just meet all the Asian tiger moms and aunties. Like they're not soft.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Seriously. They're ferocious. Oh my gosh. But I was actually going to ask you earlier. So in your school years, did you ever feel like yellow fever was like such a big thing, especially like back then? I'm sure it is today too. that with the boys like fetishizing Asian women, do you feel like that was also a thing?
Definitely. I think it was an issue then and still is an issue. But yeah, like I mentioned, when all of it hit puberty, like the guys would rank the girls in our grade on hotness, which is already icky in and of itself. But then there would always, Asian women would always be like a separate category. It'd be like, oh, these are the prettiest girls. And then these are the prettiest Asian girls. If we were like totally separate, and it just feels so othering and like humanizing. Like you're not actually considered a woman.
Yeah.
You're considered an Asian woman, which is
You're an
like a
alien.
separate category.
God.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just like this men applying this lens of not just seeing you through a very sexualized way, but also in a way that's very racially driven. And I think that shows up in adult life as well. Like you see from all these women on dating apps, and they'll receive messages from men that are like, I remember like I was on a dating app once and some guy just sent me a message and was like, how do I get an Asian girl to go out with me? And it's maybe start with treating us like human when not
maybe don't start with that
dog breed.
My God.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but I think a lot of people still think that way. Like even you could take that to the extreme when you think about guys who are like sex tourists and they go to these countries in Southeast Asia just to pick up Asian women. And it's just very dehumanizing. And so I think that it's still something that needs to be unlearned in society for sure.
100%. It can be really hard, and I agree. We should be treated like humans, like all people should. And I think my husband was telling me some statistic about how Asian women are the most matched on dating apps. Like they'll get the most matches. And yes, there is a lot of people out there who have yellow fever and specifically date Asian women and fetishize them. And I think it's disgusting.
Yeah. I know people think it's a privilege in some weird way. They're like,
oh, yeah,
isn't it great to be desired? But it's not when it comes from a place of not actually seeing someone as human, just seeing them as like this kind of
the prize
identity, like this prize to be won. Like I actually wrote an article about this for Next Shark back in 2020 when there was the Atlanta spa shooting, and the shooter, he had targeted all of these Asian-owned spas, and he said that the killing was motivated by his sex addiction. And it was like, why did you specifically choose to target these Asian-owned spas where like predominantly Asian women were? And so this kind of mindset, it leads to real world violence towards Asian women. And like, even, if you look at like the sex trafficking trade in Southeast Asia and just like the rates of domestic violence towards Asian women, like this manifests into real world consequences, and it's not like romantic or a privilege. It's objectifying and dehumanizing.
I'd also like to ask you, you have a moment recently where you caught yourself shrinking yourself again, and what pulled you back into your power?
Yeah, I was recently at this event in Hollywood, and I was so nervous going into it because it was this event where like basically a lot of directors and actors would be there. A lot of the people who like run Hollywood were going to be at this event. I was super nervous because I was like, I'm not famous. I don't feel like I'm going to belong in this space. And then I walked into the room, and I was also the only Asian person in the room. And so I was just hit again with that feeling of not belonging. And so I think for the first day of the event, I was just quiet. I didn't feel like my place there was valid. And I definitely felt like I was shrinking myself there. But then I think it was when I started to hear people speaking at the event and sharing their thoughts on the topic. And it made me realize, like, hey, I actually know a lot about this topic. And I feel like I could definitely add on to this conversation or have a little bit more expertise on this because I've done a lot of research into this topic. And so I think it made me realize a lot of that imposter syndrome was in my head, and this idea that I didn't belong. It's something that comes from what I thought I could be as an Asian woman, but isn't necessarily true. If I actually spoke up in this setting, like I have a lot to say, and I think other people would have a lot to learn from me too. And so I think just being in those spaces and realizing other people who are in these really intimidating spaces are also just human as well, it really helped me to realize I can also have a voice.
Yes, I love that. Like how you reframed that in your mind from going from, I don't belong here because no one else looked like me and I'm not a celebrity. I don't have the same status as them to like, hey, I have a lot to say because I've done the research, but I've talked about these topics before and my voice matters too. And I think that's so powerful and something that I feel too that I have to constantly remind myself that we don't need to put other people on pedestals. Like they're human as well. And we shouldn't be afraid to share. But sometimes it's harder to do. So I think you should be very proud of yourself for that. I actually got this question from TikTok because I was watching this video of this dude. He was outside with this kid and saying, like, I think he was having a hard day, as humans do. And he was like, if I imagine myself as a 90-year-old, clearly he was like not 90, he was probably like in his 30s. If I imagine myself 90 years today and look back at this moment, like, what would I cherish the most? And I felt like that is so grounding because oftentimes, especially in today's culture, you're hustling, trying to get more views, especially on social media, and just trying to go places, which I think is great, but it can also burn you out so fast. And without that grounding and bringing yourself to the present moment to feel grateful, I think it can be really hard. So my question for you is, if you were 90-year-old Katy looking back at Pledge today, what moment do you think she would cherish the most? It could be the moment that made you feel proud, fulfilled, and truly alive.
Yeah. Do you mean one specific moment or?
You can do multiple. It's up to you. Whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, I feel like for me, there's not one specific moment that comes to mind, but I think it would be an accumulation of moments where I really felt a sense of community. I think that is really at the heart of everything I do. And maybe it comes from a place of not feeling like I belonged when I was a kid. But I think whenever I'm around people where I really feel like we're in this together, we understand each other, we see each other, that is such a powerful feeling. And I think, yeah, for a lot of people who are marginalized, they've grown up with that sense of not belonging. And so when we can all come together, those are the most special moments and really why we're doing this work. I think it even goes back to my own heritage, like growing up in a Cantonese family, like it's very family oriented, it's very community oriented. A lot of Asian societies are a lot more collectivist compared to like Canada and the US, which are more individualistic, which is great for like growing on your own, but it can be harder to find that sense of community. And I think that's what I love the most about activism. It's not just those moments of writing a post that goes viral, but it's actually about getting in a room with people and actually connecting. What we're doing right now, like genuinely talking to someone face to face. And like that is, I think, the most fulfilling feeling. So I think we need a lot more community and a lot more, whether it's in person or online, but genuine, like human to human connection. I think that's how we create change. And yeah, I think just whenever somebody comes up to me and they're like, wow, I really loved what you wrote and it really made me reflect on my life, and to get to talk to them about that, it's just so exciting. And I think we, in this online world, get really caught up in these metrics and stuff. But like you said, when we think about when we're 90 years old, I'm not going to be thinking about, wow, I'm so happy I wrote that post that had 1 million likes, even though that's great too. But I think it's going to be the moments where I generally get to connect with a person, like whether it's just one person or 100 people or 1,000 people. Yeah, I think it's all about that human to human connection at the end of the day.
I agree 100%. And that's like really why I started my podcast again and why I wanted to interview people, because yeah, like I connected with so many amazing like activists and influencers like online, that I need like real human connection where we see each other face to face and can hear each other's emotions and voice and just connect. And I think community is so big because it's really becoming lost in today's society, whether it's because of social media. There's that we're spending so much time on our phones, scrolling through TikTok and social media instead of seeing friends or going out and seeing the world. And I think that can be really hard, especially because the longer you stay inside your home, the more normalized it feels. And so you don't feel like going out anymore. And I think that can be so detrimental to your mental health. So I really love that. You're going to remember the human moments you had that made you feel human. And I think a lot of that's through emotions that you feel connecting with other people. And that's so powerful. And that's what we need today. And I'm really glad to talk to you because I feel like I'm building my own little community and so are you. And we can all come together and be part of this great, beautiful community that we all need. So that's amazing. So you said we're often rewarded for being supporting characters, especially as Asian women. I think that's so true. What does it look like to take the lead in your own story and encourage other people to do the same?
Yeah, I think the first step to taking the lead is just understanding why you don't feel comfortable taking the lead. So understanding all the things that are holding you back, like understanding your limiting beliefs. And I think for women, for people of color, those limiting beliefs can often come from these societal expectations. So I think it starts with just like unlocking that part of your brain and unlearning those ideas about yourself that are holding you back. So I definitely recommend for everyone to read feminist literature. Like Bell Hooks is a great author for anybody who's new to feminism to really learn about what feminism is. Whether, like, no matter your gender, it applies to all of us. And unlearning those norms can be freeing, whether you're a man or a woman or trans or non-binary. Like, it's something that we all need to unlearn as a society. So I think, learning about first, like, where these oppressions come from can really help you to understand and to move forward. And then from there, I think, taking the lead is like feeling comfortable to speak your truth and to also like be okay with receiving backlash sometimes because you are going to be doing something different and subverting people's expectations, and be okay with that. That's fine. That means that what you have to say is important. If everything you said was just non-controversial and everyone just agreed with it, like, that's nice, but where's the progress? So I think it's actually okay to say something that kind of rubs people, not the wrong way, but like provokes them in a way that makes them curious about their own thoughts and their own feeling. And then I think the final part of it is also supporting others, but without dimming your own shine. So I think a mistake that I would make a lot as an Asian person was to always be that supporting character, but not also speak out for myself. So I think it's really about not just speaking up for yourself, but also bringing other people with you. So when I, like, in a lot of my activism work at Bad Asia, I think, yes, it's important to speak up for Asian people, but it's also important for us to uplift Black communities and Indigenous communities and all rise up together. And it doesn't mean that I can't also speak out for my community, but it means that I can speak out for my community and also uplift others, and everybody's struggle is valid. So that's what I hope that we can see in our movement going forward.
That's amazing. And thank you for recommending Bell Hooks. Is it just like the way you think it's spelled? Is it like Bell and then like Hooks?
Literally Bell Hooks.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I'm trying to get back into reading. I used to read a lot of fantasy like books like Twilight. So
Me too.
yeah. Okay, we're in our last section and I'm being wary of time here. I know you spoke a bit about the world you're trying to help build, especially with community being a core like pillar of what you're trying to build. If you would describe who you're trying to build it for, can you go into that? And just the world we'd like to see.
So the idea for starting Bad Asia, as I mentioned before, it stems from my own past of always feeling like I was trying to be good. But I think I realized that a lot of other people feel that way as well. So I think this community is really for anybody who has ever felt that sense of, I call it in-betweenness. I think academics would call it intersectionality, which is basically like having all of these intersecting identities that shape how you experience the world. For example, like a woman will experience sexism, but a Black woman will experience the intersection of sexism and racism. And that compounds into a totally different experience for her as compared to, let's say, a white woman. And you add these components of race and class and religion and all of these different identities that intersect to create our experience in the world. And so I think Asian people are at a really interesting position within that kind of web of identities, because I think you could say like Asian people are maybe privileged in some ways in that maybe we don't experience the same kind of like violence and prejudice as Black and Indigenous people experience. And on average, we might be at an economic advantage, but at the same time, we do experience racism and violence. And we're in the state of in between. And I don't know if you felt this growing up, but I always felt like I couldn't speak up for myself because of being in between the two. I was like, I feel like I'm privileged in some ways, but I'm also like not privileged, and I've experienced a lot of like racism and sexism. And so it's like a really tough identity to grapple with because I want to speak up and I want to be an ally, but I also have my own things that I'm experiencing. And it's just a really complex identity to grapple with. And I realized not just Asian people, but a lot of people, every person actually has these intersecting identities and this feeling of in between. And so I wanted to create that Asian, like not just for the Asian community, but for anybody who is grappling with that sense of in between, and hopefully help them understand that they can also have a voice and encourage them to speak out for themselves and for others.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you're opening it to more than just Asian people because, yeah, everyone needs that. And I definitely could feel the in-betweenness, especially someone like struggling with their sense of self-worth growing up. I've always seen myself as like the back burner or not as important as other people. So especially on Instagram, when people started talking about intersectionality and racism, when those topics started popping up, I did feel like Asian people were probably the most privileged out of the people of color, just because there are privileges that we do have that other communities of color may not have. But over time, I've learned that like we matter too, and we can speak up for ourselves and uplift other communities at the same time. And I feel like that's so powerful because not only can we use our source of pain as a way to relate to other people, but we can really bring communities together. And that's just going to make us so much stronger than if we were to be in these silos working alone. And that's why I really love that shift of when everything started to become intersectional and people really started speaking out and coming together. And I felt that was so powerful and pivotal in that space. Yeah, I can really relate that. I think as we find our voice, like we can speak up for ourselves and again, uplift other people as well. So thank you for bringing that up as well. And finally, what do you want your legacy to be? I know you're still young and you still got a life ahead of you, but if you were to think from everything you've learned and where you want to go, what do you think your legacy would be once you leave this place?
Yeah, if I don't get swept away by the tsunami,
That's fair. We need you.
Yeah, I think there's this poem that I really love. Let me see if I can remember it word for word. It's goes something like I'm not quoting it exactly, but basically It's about this person reflecting on how they would feel at the end of their life. The poem's called Late Fragment. And he's basically saying, if I'm looking back on my life at the end of my life, all I wanted to do is to feel that I was loved. And that's all I want. And I think at the end of your life, with that feeling of being genuinely loved by your community would be, that's at the heart of it, is that we all want. And that's what I want for myself in my personal life. But I think in my work, I would also hope to help other people feel that way, especially those who've been disenfranchised and who are going through really difficult things. I think ultimately we all deserve to just feel like we were taken care of and loved by the community. Unfortunately, there's still so many people around the world who don't get to feel that. And I think that's really the heart of activism, is just to spread that love throughout the community and make sure everybody feels that way.
That's beautiful and so human. I think we all just want to be loved. Like it's just, especially like growing up, like as children, like your children, like now that I have my own kid, crazy. Yeah, they really just want to be loved and held and accepted for who they are. And I feel like that's just everyone. So that's a beautiful legacy, Katy. And I really feel that radiating. Like, even though we're not in the same room together, I can still feel like that radiating from your heart. So that was beautiful. Okay, so where can people find you, Katy? I know you have a website, Substack, that people know where they can find you and follow you along the bad Asian journey.
Thanks. Yeah. So you can find me at Katy Ho, so KATYHO, on all social media platforms. So I'm the most active on Instagram, but I'm also involved in X and Blue Sky there. And then if you want to read my writing, you can find that at katyho.substack.com or just search for Bad Asian. That's where I post most of my writing. And I do a monthly roundup of all of my writing. So you can just find everything in one spot on my Substack. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And I'm excited to connect with everybody. Always excited to chat about Asian feminism and to build this movement together. And yeah, really appreciate you having me and all the amazing work you're doing, Elizabeth, to raise awareness about important issues and like really use your platform to not just talk about your own work, but uplift other people too. Really grateful.
No, I love having you on. That was truly amazing to see you in person and to hear you speak. And you have such an amazing, genuine aura. So I only wish good things for you to come. And of course, I'll be supporting you along the way.
I just wanted to add something quickly to something we were chatting about before with just like speaking out for the Asian community. And like, I think it was your question about being the lead or the lead character, Black question.
I think the question was, we're often like seen as supporting characters. So how can we practice being the lead of the story?
Yeah. Yes. Because there was something that after you like added on to my answer, there was something I wanted to add there.
Yeah, go for it.
Which was talking about like how speaking out for ourselves can be really difficult as Asian people because we feel like our struggles, in a sense, are not as valid as those of maybe other communities that experience more oppression. And I just wanted to share that there's also this history with the model minority myth of Asian people being these model minorities. And a lot of our identity has been shaped around this like kind of complicity and upholding of white supremacy. And it's how Asian people have been positioned in the past of, oh, you need to be a hard worker and you just need to be quiet. And, oh, look at these Asian people. They just work hard. They keep their mouths shut and like they're rewarded for it. And so a lot of the time our position in society is used to justify racism towards Black and Indigenous and other racialized groups. I think when Asian people, we stand up for ourselves and we speak out, we're actually breaking that idea that minorities need to be quiet and that they need to be silent. And that in itself actually helps to dismantle white supremacy and it helps to empower all racialized groups because we're breaking that idea down. So I think that's what makes it extra important for us to speak out. So in a lot of my work, I really try to critique white power, uplift other people of color. And yeah, I think for all the Asian people out there who like think that their struggle isn't valid, it is super valid. And like you speaking out is actually such a powerful thing and it helps all minorities. So yeah, I just wanted to add that on because I think it's important to understand that historical context.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that, actually. Because yeah, growing up, my mom's always, especially in her career, she works in finance. And she's always told me to keep my head down, work hard, and not say anything. And I've grown up with that mindset, but now I'm realizing that, hey, sometimes I have things to say and I can hold myself back a lot of the times in like meetings or anything in general. And I think that's so important. Even just speaking up seems like a simple thing to do, but it can really break the mold and the barrier or the box that we're put in. And yeah, that could leave ripple effects and really change the world because when other people see that you, another Asian person is speaking out, it could give them the courage to speak out too, or at least feel more comfortable in doing so.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Thoughtful Advocate. If this episode sparked something in you, leave a review, share it with a friend, leave a review, or tag us on Instagram at The Thoughtful Advocate. As always, I'd love to hear from you if this resonated, and I'd love to hear who do you like to hear from next, whether that's a guest you've been wanting to hear their real story from. Till next time.
Okay, so today's sponsor is Kind Laundry. Just kidding, they're not really a sponsor, but I do have an affiliate code. Kind Laundry use natural ingredients and it actually comes in these sheets. So much more useful than liquid laundry detergent because that stuff gets messy. With Kind Laundry, you can bring this anywhere. You can get 10% off by using code ZeroWasteCute.